genuinely thought it would be easy and it would be a piece of cake because I was just engulfed in startup culture, like learning about it. And I started listening to podcasts and this and that. And I started learning stories about this company raising X millions and that company raising X millions. And I was like, oh, these are such silly ideas. And mine is such a better idea. Of course I can refund it. And of course people will believe in me, right? And I was like, okay. So that's it gave me the false confidence that it's gonna be a cakewalk. And when I decided to do it, I was excited. I was naive, and I was like, a go-getter. Of course, now the realities have set in quite a bit after 5 years, but that was a huge false assumption that it was going to be
easy. It genuinely came down to a big enough problem. I think I was doing a lot of different types of sort of digital work in my corporate jobs previously, but then I really wanted to do something where you really, really feel like you're making a big difference and a big impact to a problem in the real world. Get your hands dirtier, I suppose. For me, that was seeing that education in Indonesia really, really lacked solutions for areas that didn't have internet. I felt like what Keepin was doing, so I joined as a co-founder, but I felt like what Keepin was doing was very different from the solutions I saw in the market. Also, I think sometimes the question you have to ask is like, what's the alternative? Like, why not now? And for me, I didn't have a good enough answer. I felt the timing was right, and this problem needed to be solved yesterday. So that's why I ended up doing a startup. Yeah.
I still remember it was the summer of 2018, and I had the idea to do Blitz, or at least bits of what Blitz was going to be started to formulate in my head. And I vividly remember this. 6 months later, I had a very heart-to-heart call with my dad. And I called him and I said, hey, look, this idea that I had 6 months ago, I really want to do it. But I feel guilt that you guys work so hard to send me to America, study here, work here. I feel like I would be throwing all that away. And he said, don't worry about that. Just focus on what your heart tells you, and we'll support you in whatever you want. And that was the day, I still remember that day in February 2019, that I decided that, okay, you know what, I'm going to do this full time. I'm not going to focus on my job. I'm going to ease out of that. And I'm going to start to really dedicate myself to building this company. And that's when it started.
So my situation might be a little bit different. I was actually already consulting on this project when I was in a full-time job, and I was retrenched from that job, so the decision was made for me. The decision I did have to make was whether I should walk away from interviewing for another job or keep working on this. That decision was still scary. I felt like I was picking between two huge unknowns because I didn't know what that future job would be, and I didn't know what starting a company might look like or taking it further. So the first thing I did was try to find out more information about both. So I did start interviewing, and I did try to figure out what the company might look like. And after interviewing with a couple of companies, I realized that our technology was still the most exciting, meaningful, and the team was the most fun to work with. So that made my decision for me.
For me, I felt like I was stagnating at my corporate job. I didn't spend that long actually graduating out of university and working in a corporate. It was only maybe 2 years in, and I felt like I wasn't being challenged enough, and I didn't see my career trajectory turn into something that was very fulfilling and challenging. And I happened to have a lot of founder friends, and I really loved how quickly they were growing, the kind of problems they were solving, and the rooms that they had access to because of the nature of their work. And I just felt like I was ready for that leap to push myself, and that was mainly the reason why I wanted to start building something.
I had to take this on full time. I would be the only person driving it full time as well as the CEO. And something about that title, that responsibility really weighed on me. I took it extremely seriously, deliberating whether I wanted to do it or not. I remember trying to be as objective as possible, and I remember trying to tamp down the fear, mainly of failure and reputation and embarrassment, and really ask myself, will I regret it if I don't do it? Yes. Will my other options be there if I do this for a year and it doesn't work out? Also, yes. And at that point, it became easier.
I mean, yeah, it actually it was very exciting. There was a lot more excitement than fear for me. And I don't know. I mean, I think that's how it should feel. Like it should feel really exciting that you're starting something new. So wasn't really looking back at things, but more looking forward of what may come. So for me, leading up to the point that I left the job was really, really exciting, and I was always like, thinking about the new idea. After I left the job, yeah, I mean, a little bit of fear kicked in when you don't get your paycheck the first time, and your bank balance starts going down the first month, the second month, and then when you're pivoting and you're like, maybe we could have spent some more time.
Well, my general advice is don't overweigh the fear of failure and try to tamp that back and balance it out with like a logical weighing up of the pros and cons. So I have some diagnosis questions that I've written down. The first one, is this something that will benefit from your full-time attention, or can you work on it as a side hustle first? The second diagnosis question is, what's your alternative career option? Do you know what it actually is, what you're walking away from? And if you don't, find out. Maybe interview so you have something to compare with. And will that path still be there for you in 6 months to 1 year's time if you do your startup full time and you have to fall back on something? And then the third diagnosis question is the opportunity to start up time sensitive? Will that still be there in a year or in 2 years for you to pick up again? And if it's not and it will just pass away, then is it something you want to act on now, or will you regret it?
I do believe that everyone's journey is different. So of course, it's like at the end of the day, you have to trust your own gut. But ask the question: why are you afraid? Like, what's the actual thing that's making you afraid? If it's just the fear of failure, then maybe you're not, valuing the experience and the good stories that you will have at the end of the journey. So maybe take that into account and understand that yes, failure is real and it's not bad. I mean, experience is never bad. So yeah, at the end of the day, just trust your gut, and sometimes you just have to take the leap, right? You have to fall before you can stand. So